Hey guys, it's a good day for an experiment here in the shop. So lately I've been getting into doing a little bit of hand-carved signs using a router. And so you can see that the blue portion there is carved away with a router. This part is laser printed or laser engraved. So it's been kind of a fun thing, real learning process. And so typically the way this is done is you'll see this, and I'm going to put a link to Eric wrote and makeawoodsign.com. Put a link to their channel down here in the description. Typically the way this is done is, and they'll show you more than I'll ever know. So they've forgotten more about sign making than I'll ever know. Typically you have these little cutout letters, and you'll lay those on your board. I'm going to put some inset pictures on there. You lay them on your board. You'll fluff it with some paint. Just automotive primer, and then you'll carve out either the outside and make kind of a cloud letter or outset fill or whatever you want to call it, or you'll carve out the actual letter itself using a router. This is a fine line bit here, or right now I've got a 60-degree bit mounted on that router there, and then you'll sand away the excess paint. You might foof it again if you're doing the inset letter because you carved away the paint that was on top there. You'll paint it, wait for that to dry, and sand away all the excess paint and stuff. So it's been a great learning curve. It's a lot of fun, and so far everything I've done I've given away or has been for myself. You know, like this guy with my business logo on it, and but I wanted to try something different. I hate sanding all that paint because what you end up with. Let's see, where did I put one? Let's see, how's this guy? Yeah, see that? So sanding disc just ends up just filled with black paint. And it's kind of a pain. By the way, if you ever start doing this, or if you don't do anything with sanding, get one of these sanding erasers, and you just turn on your sander, run this across it with a little bit of pressure, and it helps clear up those clogs and stuff, so that helps a lot. But I thought, maybe I wonder if there's another way. The other thing is also my old eyes. So you really need to be able to see where the edge of that router bit is compared to that area that's painted. And I thought, I wonder if it would be easier to cut away painted areas rather than cut away non-painted areas. In other words, which one I'm using as my guide. So what I'm doing today, and plus I won't have to sand as much paint if this works out. So what I'm doing today is I'm doing an experiment. Now, not everybody that's going to do these hand-carved signs has a laser, but I do. And so I've done a couple things before. I've done things like laser the letters directly on the board, and then I don't have to paint it. I do find that laser line is really thin, and it's easy to think you're done, sand it all off, and realize, crud, I didn't quite get all that engraved line off of there. So that's one thing I've done. I've also cut out my own letters rather than buy them. But the guys there at Make a Wood Sign, they have these pre-cut letter kits that are really nice. And that's where I also got all the bits. Like I said, I'll link their page. But I thought, what if I masked the entire board and then I laser cut and then remove what I don't want to carve and paint that. So now when I'm running my router, I'm actually removing the painted portion. And so I'm going to see if that helps. See if that's something that's maybe a little bit easier for me. It's not obviously not something I'm going to do every time, and something that might not be applicable for every design. But I thought it was something worth trying here. So just tell you what I've prepped the board with. You want to, before you do any of this, but I didn't do it with this one, and that's why it's not maybe quite as nice looking as it could be. You want to spray it with a couple coats of just clear spray lacquer. Some of this stuff, and let that dry. So what that's going to do is it's going to kind of seal the board and help prevent any of that black primer from bleeding into neighboring fibers. This is pine. It will bleed pretty good if you don't do that. Another thing I'm going to recommend, so you can see this is a pretty rough cut, and really it's not the best board for this purpose. And the difference is the grain. Let's see. You can kind of see that grain there, how it's going perpendicular to the surface of the board. That's going to be a little bit harder to carve. And whereas this one, you can see it's closer to parallel to the face of the board. That's going to be a little bit easier to carve. And you know, that's my excuse for why those are jagged. It couldn't be my lack of skill. I also did kind of whip this out quick just for the purpose of this video, and I'll put some pictures of that process in here. So anyway, so I couple of coats of spray lacquer, then I tape the surface of the board with some masking tape, and then it's probably hard to see on camera there, but I marked the center, and that'll come up here in just a second when we go over to light burn into the laser and show you what I'm doing there. So that's how I've prepped this board. I'm going to laser engrave my design, or laser cut the masking tape of my design, and then weed away everything, and then I'm going to paint it with the black, and then I'm going to remove the tape, and I'm going to route it. So we'll see. This could be a failed experiment, and that's okay. We'll both learn together. So let's go over to the light burn and the laser, and we'll show you what we're doing. Okay, so here we are. I'm not going to bother to do the light burn on screen recording thing, just because this is going to be a pretty quick and simple piece of the pie here. But you can see this is my sign design, and it's kind of a humorous phrase, and my friend has a good story behind it, but this is what he wanted. So I've represented, I'm going to do a routed edge around the outside, and then this stuff here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away that masking, not for the edges there, but I'm going to cut away that masking to be able to weed that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to select this outside border first, and I'm going to just put that on a tool line because I don't need to trace it, I don't need to cut it, okay? And then on this, I've got it set to fill mainly just so you can see it, but I'm going to put it to line, okay? And then I'm going to go to my material library, and I actually made one. I did some testing, and there it is, blue tape, cut. And I'm going to assign that to that layer, okay? Okay, now I'm going to go back to my cuts and layers, and I can see my speed and everything is changed up here where I want it. So now it's gonna cut that. Now you'll see this, or maybe you might not see it on the camera. There's a little red dot here. So basically what I did is that's where that center mark of the board comes in. So that's how I'm gonna line my board. I'm actually gonna set this black to not go to output and that little dot to go to output. And I already know parallel on my board because I use a jig system to get stuff parallel or in alignment with my laser horizontally. Vertically, I guess that would be on this design. But I'm just going to move my laser until it traces out that X that I marked on the center of the board. And so that's what that guy's going to be. Once I get that traced and that board placed where I want it, after that, I'm going to unselect that so it's not set to output. Then I'm going to select my line and put it to output, trace again to make sure I got that right, and then I'm going to cut. So it's just that simple. So I'm going to go ahead and film this. Might be just a little bit shaky, but let's go back and home this. Okay, now you can see my little tiny dot right there. So we're going to go ahead and frame. That's the only thing that I have set to output is that dot. And frame. Okay, let's do that again. That's actually right on. Okay, so I can scoot that back and forth until it's right on, and that's how we're doing that. So now I'm going to go back to my cuts and layers over here, and I'm going to turn that layer off, turn my cut layer, the actual outline of the sign on, and I'm going to frame that again. Make sure that I'm on and that I'm pretty centered. By golly, that looks pretty good. Open up my wastegate there with the big reminder that says open me, and turn on my exhaust fan, and we're just going to start that critter. Okay, so that cut took all of about, I don't know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes or something like that. And this is what it looks like, okay? So now you see those black marker pieces? I went ahead and marked a few places just to show you that you can do that really, and to help keep my own brain kind of straight. And those are areas that I want to remove. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm using just X-Acto knife. I will tell you dental picks work really well for this. I'm going to work up the edge of that like so. And pull that off. So there you can see I pulled the O out of the middle of house, the O on a house there. And I'm just going to go through and do this whole works that way. Let's just see how well this goes. Okay, so you can see that's coming right off there. I think that's pretty darn good. So I'll come back, I'll weed this, and I'll show you what I'm done with here. Okay, so I have that all weeded, and this is what it looks like. And that went really quick. I mean, it took me, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes to weed all that out of there. Once you lift that edge with a sharp object, I'm just using one of the little snap-off blades, you can just kind of follow that along pretty easily. You know, being careful where you have the layers of tape or the different runs of tape touching each other. But here's the thing, it's really tacky. So I'm not sure whether that's a residue from my tape or whether maybe I didn't let because it is kind of discount tape, but I would have thought it was better than this. It's from Duck brand. Or whether I didn't let it cure enough when I sprayed that clear lacquer before I taped it. So that very well could be the case as well. We're gonna see. I'm gonna wait a little while, see if some of that tackiness disappears, and then I'm gonna foof it with some black and see what happens. So we'll see you back when I paint the black on there. Okay, so I've waited a little while and that tackiness just hasn't gone away. Now, what I do notice is if I rub on that, it kind of balls up, kind of like contact adhesive or rubber cement does. And so I've kind of rubbed that just to, and yeah, that's just weird. So I think what I have is either an interaction or I've got some just damn cheap tape, you know. That serves me right. Don't buy the Wally World tape, I guess. We'll see. I'm gonna have to do some experiments on there. But I'm gonna go ahead and spray this. I think I've got enough of that rubbed off that it's still gonna work as a guide. You know, when you're doing this, that paint really is just a guide. And so we're gonna see what happens. It could either suck or it'll be great. And either way, I'm gonna let you know. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back here and this just sucks. It is tacky everywhere. Everywhere there was tape, it's tacky. And that's terrible. You can't have that. It's really important that your router, when you're routing these signs, that it be able to slide back and forth really easy, you know? Otherwise, you're gonna be jerky movement with that stickiness. So the good news is that every board has two sides. And this side I had not lacquered previously. And so that's what I think is going on. I think it's an interaction between my tape and my lacquer, and or I didn't let the lacquer cure long enough. So, you know, we're learning together. So I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna lacquer it first. I'm gonna take a chance and see what happens when I just do my primer over that to end up with this. Now the cool thing is like from 60 feet away, that looks like a cool sign. But nobody's gonna look at it from 60 feet away. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape the edges off here with some tape, and I'm gonna just lightly cover this with my black primer, which is somewhere, anyway, with black primer, and then I'll take off that masking tape and we'll see what happens. We'll see what it's like. This might just be a terrible idea all the way around, in which case I'll go back to my old method, which on this particular design would be to laser etch that outline and then engrave to that outline. So anyway, I'm gonna spray and we'll be back. Hey guys, so that turned out just fine. Worked great, and that looks great. You could almost do this for making a painted sign if you want to do it like that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and carve this, And again, I am far from a carving expert on this. This is new stuff to me. I'm putting in a link down here in the description about Eric Roten and makeahardwoodsign.com. And so I'll start out with the smaller areas with this little tiny guy. It's a profile bit. And then I'll go in and do it with this. I think I'm going to use the 60 degree at least. Yeah, probably the 60 degree bit after that. So I'm going to carve this, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like when it's done being carved. Again, don't rely, I'm not going to show you a bunch of that because I wouldn't be a very good instructor on it. And but if you go to that Make a Wood Sign or Eric Roten's channel that I'm going to link there in the description, I would really recommend going there and watching a few of their videos. They make it look super simple, but you know, it's like any other skill. The more you do it, the better off you get at it. So there you go. This was a waste of time. Should not have lacquered that first, or I should have let that lacquer dry for a day or two. But typical thing. The good news is it's not going to slip while I'm trying to route it there. It's just going to stay in one spot, and then I'll have to clean off that back side. Okay, so I've routed the sign. I did all the work, did the spray paint, and it's with several, probably 7 or 8 coats of gloss lacquer. Just this is the satin, but the gloss brand of that stuff. And you know, it looks pretty good, I think. So was it worth it? Was the tape thing worth it? I'm going to say yes and no. You know, in one regard, did it really save me a whole lot of sanding? It saved me a little bit of sanding, getting rid of the black paint when you go over that. It was definitely easier to see the line than it is if I just laser etch just a regular thin line, laser line around that. It's a lot easier to see that black and know that I need to get rid of it, or I need to go right up to the edge of it. So I will say that. Will I do it again? Probably, but I don't know that I'll, it just depends, you know. The nice thing about it is I get to use whatever font I want. So, you know, if I don't have to cut all those individual stencil letters, you know, this one would be tough because it's got, let's see, it's got 2 B's. Well, the standard letter kit you buy from the places only has 1 B, one of each consonant. You know, so that's kind of nice. I can use whatever font I want. I'm not limited to the fonts that they sell. I don't have to cut, like I say, I don't have to cut all those letters and do that. I also don't have to worry about spray paint blowing that letter out of place as I'm puffing paint on it. So in that regard, I think it's worth it. The other nice thing, I can use whatever font I want, whatever size I want. If I need, these for instance are about a 2 1/4 inch, 2.5 inch letter. I didn't have to buy another set of letters for that. So I think I'll probably use that a lot, and also with some graphics that maybe there aren't standard templates for, and I can make my own graphics. Couple tips that I'll share along the way. Again, the blades that I'm using, or the bits that I'm using, are from makeawoodsign.com. I'm going to link him here. I'm also going to link their YouTube channel, just because they've got so many great videos on how to do these routed signs. This was just one, how to do the routed sign and maybe use a laser with that. The other tip that I will give is when you're doing the spray lacquer stuff, like this one here, it's got, I think I'm done. It's got a nice gloss to it without looking plasticky, and it's well protected. That's probably about 10 coats. Now you do really light coats, let them dry completely, really light coats. So this is over the course of a full day. I know I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, but I actually started this project yesterday, started painting it yesterday. But you know, it's a sweatshirt, it goes over your t-shirt. It's fine, I don't stink. What are you talking about? Anyway, so this is about 10 coats over the course of 2 days. And just use really light coats. If you're in a cool area like I am, I keep the spray can actually in the house, and then I bring it out with me, do a coat, take it back in with me. That paint just works a lot better. It sprays a lot better if it's a little bit warmed up. What was the other tip? I thought there was another tip, but maybe there's not. Except, you know, it's an experiment. Try new stuff out in the shop. Will I consider this a failure? No, I did learn some things. Even if I never use that tape method again, I learned some things, and I got to practice my router skills again, etc. So it's always a success if you're learning new stuff, and if you're creating, that's exercising that part of your brain. And if I was a preacher, about anything on my channel, that's what I preach about, is using that little bit of your cortex there. So until next time, be well, do good work, and I'll see you down the road.